Vacations are supposed to be relaxing, right? At least, that's what I told myself when I booked a quiet getaway to a secluded beach town. I had spent months buried in deadlines, and the promise of pristine sands, turquoise waters, and absolute silence was irresistible. The town was small, nestled between jagged cliffs and thick forest, and the beach stretched on forever. But there was something about the place, something off. The arrival. I got there in the late afternoon. The air smelled like salt and sun-baked earth, and the roar of the waves was hypnotic. My rental house was perfect, a quaint little cottage perched right at the edge of the sand. The locals were friendly enough but distant. They avoided eye contact and didn't linger when I asked questions about the area. One elderly shopkeeper warned me with a trembling voice, "Don't stay by the water after sundown." I laughed it off. Surely it was just some old superstition. I wasn't about to let paranoia ruin my vacation. The first night. I spent my first evening walking along the shoreline, my feet sinking into the cool, damp sand. The sunset painted the horizon in fiery oranges and deep purples, and I felt truly at peace for the first time in years. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the mood shifted. The waves, which had been calm and rhythmic, began to sound strange, like whispers. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but the longer I listened, the clearer the sounds became. It wasn't random noise. It was voices. They were faint, carried by the breeze, and they seemed to be calling my name. The drowned woman. I hurried back to the cottage, locking the door behind me. I told myself it was just my imagination, a trick of exhaustion and isolation. But that night, I couldn't sleep. At around 2 a.m., I heard something outside, a faint tapping sound, like wet fingers drumming against the windows. My heart pounded as I crept toward the curtain, pulling it back just enough to peek outside. There was a woman standing on the beach. Her back was to me, and her long dark hair clung to her body like seaweed. She was soaking wet, her dress tattered and clinging to her pale skin. She didn't move, didn't seem to breathe, just stood there staring out at the ocean. Then slowly, she turned her head, not her body, just her head, toward the cottage. Even in the dark, I could feel her eyes on me. I stumbled back, pulling the curtains shut and clutching my phone. But when I looked again, she was gone. The locals' warning. The next morning, I went into town, desperate for an explanation. The shopkeeper from the day before avoided me, but another local, a young man who looked as uneasy as I felt, finally spoke up. "She's the drowned woman," he said, glancing around as if afraid someone might overhear. "They say she was a bride who died on her wedding day, pulled out to sea by a riptide while she waited for her husband on the beach. Her body was never found, but her spirit, it's still here." "Why?" I asked, my throat dry. He shrugged. "She's looking for something, or someone. But those who see her, they don't last long." The second night, I should have left. I packed my bags, threw them in the car, and was ready to drive away. But something pulled me back. A whisper, faint but insistent, seemed to rise from the ocean itself. "Stay," it said. I found myself back on the beach after dark, my feet moving as if they had a mind of their own. The moonlight reflected off the water, making it look like liquid silver. And then I saw her again. She was standing in the surf, her hair billowing unnaturally in the breeze. Her face was obscured, but her posture was inviting, almost pleading. "Come closer," the whispers urged. Against all reason, I took a step toward her, then another. The cold water lapped at my feet, soaking into my jeans as I walked deeper and deeper into the waves. The final warning. I was waist deep when I heard it. A scream that pierced the night, shattering the spell. It wasn't her scream. It was mine. Something had grabbed my ankle, pulling me down into the freezing depths. I struggled, kicking and thrashing, but the grip was unrelenting. I managed to look up, and there she was, hovering above the water like a phantom. Her face was finally visible, and it was wrong. Her hollow eyes glowed faintly, and her mouth was twisted into an unnatural smile. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her voice clear as day. "You'll stay with me forever." With one final burst of adrenaline, I broke free, stumbling back onto the shore and collapsing in the sand. The aftermath. I left the next morning, never looking back, but the whispers stayed with me. Even now, miles away from that cursed beach, I sometimes hear them at night, faint and insistent. "Come back," they say. "Come back to the water."